things we wouldn't know otherwise.
Yeah.
Right?
It's quite amazing. My uncle knew some of the code breakers.
Oh, yeah? Oh, wow.
Yeah, but that whole different tribe. Those are.
Yeah, I know that. But yeah,
They were Navajo, yeah.
Yeah.
That whole story is so incredible.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah.
So speaking of stories, we're going to have a story from Rachel for this evening. How is that?
How's that for true?
Good lead-in.
So we want to continue with our evening to have a story and Havdalah, and then of course we can talk more afterwards.
This story is called The Wooden Bowl, and I've been thinking about it for a few weeks, and then it really seemed appropriate this week. For those of you who don't know, it was my mother's 95th birthday on Wednesday.
Oh,
wow. Jean Heck now knows I was being like my mother, actually very superstitious about not making too much of a big deal about it before it actually happened. Because also last year I was supposed to see her on her birthday, and the week before they had COVID cases, so the place closed down for basically the winter. So I was being very cautious with that. So this story is called The Wooden Bowl, and it's about a little old man named Elias, who had not always been so little and so old. As a young man, he'd been big and strong and handsome, and when he had children of his own, he would carry them on his broad shoulders to school every day. But after a lifetime of hard work and much responsibility, his back bent, his shoulders rounded, and his skin wrinkled until he was much less of a size than he had been before. His mind was still sharp, though. His manner was proud, and his clear blue eyes shone like a beacon in the night sky. A single glance from those eyes could tame his energetic grandson, Ellie. "Grandpa," little boy said as he climbed down his grandfather's lap one night, "tell me the story of that mark on your hand." "When I was a young man," said his grandfather, "I was traveling from Aleppo through the desert, and I was stung by a scorpion." Elias saw the little boy's eyebrows knit together with worry, even though he'd heard this story many times. So the old man continued lightly, "A Bedouin sucked out the venom out of my hand and saved my life. And I was left with a scar, so I could always remember that Bedouin and include him in my prayers. Because without him, there would be no me. And without me, there would be no you. And I'm so glad there is a you." Ellie snuggled deeper and stroked his grandfather's hands again and said, "What are those?" "They're my veins. You have them too." But his grandson said, "Why are you so big?" "They carry blood to my heart, and I have a very big heart." "But Grandpa, I can see all your veins and bones. Your skin is so thin, I can see right through it." "That's because I have nothing to hide. Now let's get you to bed, and we'll talk more in the morning." Elias and Ellie were always the first ones up every morning. Before anyone else had stirred, Elias was washed and dressed, his pants hiked up high on his belly, his face clean shaven. He would make his own very strong coffee. After all, Aleppo was in the Middle East, and they would have some very strong coffee there. And he would sit reading his newspaper while his grandson, Ellie, ate his breakfast and stared at him. "Grandpa," Ellie said on one of those mornings, "why do you walk so slowly?" "Because I'm in no rush," Elias said. "Grandpa, why do you talk so loudly?" "Because what I have to say is worth hearing." "Grandpa, why do your hands shake?" Elias lowered the paper and looked at his hands. "Oh, are they shaking? I must be excited to be with you." And he picked up his paper again. "Grandpa, don't forget tonight's Shabbat, our first since you moved in." Elias had not forgotten. He just really wasn't looking forward to it. Elias and his son Albert loved each other very much, of course. But lately, Albert had become so fussy. Elias knew that Albert cringed at his heavy Syrian accent and his loud laugh. And at tonight's Shabbat table, something was sure to make him unhappy. Well, the scene was exactly as Elias expected. The table was set with gold-rimmed china. Elegant wine glasses sparked atop an embroidered tablecloth, and a housekeeper rushed back and forth to make sure that everything was perfect. Elias sighed. It was a little too perfect for his taste, and he wasn't used to having somebody wait on him. When it came time for the kiddush, he stood up and poured the wine himself. He knew with only the briefest of glances that Albert was flinching over the few drops of wine that he spilled on the tablecloth. It's just silly fuss over a piece of linen. But then Eli was raising his cup, asking, Grandpa, aren't you going to sing the kiddush? So he said nothing. After the blessing with the wine and the challah, it was time for soup. Unfortunately, Elias dropped his spoon too heavy in the bowl, and it broke, sending a river of broth across the tablecloth and onto the carpet. Oh boy, Elias hollered cheerfully as he jabbed at the table with his shirt. Those kibbles are so fluffy they bounce right out of the bowl. Good one, Grandpa, Ellie said, nudging him with an elbow. But Ellie's father was not laughing. Albert said, please try to be more careful, Father. I'm sorry, my son, said Elias, trying to seem more serious. I will. He turned back to Ellie, but with his blue eyes, even bluer with suppressed silliness. But the next day, when Elias went to the table, he found the place setting at his different from everyone else's. Instead of the usual fancy china, he had a wooden bowl, the kind of a kitchen bowl used for mixing and chopping. What's this? Some kind of joke? Elias asked, but his son rarely joked. Father, I thought it'd be better not to worry you about breaking anything anymore, he answered, flashing Elias a quick look. You don't mind, do you? Oh, no, Elias said, no, one a bit. Why would I mind? But his eyes dimmed a little as he stared at the table in front of him, while he ate very slowly and carefully. The next morning, when it was time for Ellie to leave for a Hebrew school, Albert went looking for his son. Ellie, it's time to go. There was a special class for the holidays that was happening. The boy wasn't in the house or the yard. Finally, Albert found him in a woodshed behind the house. He had a block of wood sitting in front of him and woodworking tools all around him. There were wood shavings on his pants, on his shirt, and his hair. What's with all this mess? Albert said as he brushed off the boy's clothes. Ellie, you'll be late for school. Ellie didn't even look up at his father. I'm almost done, he said. I'm making a bowl. Bowl? What do you need a bowl for? His father asked. I don't need it. There was a pause. And finally, Albert asked, then who's it for? For you, Daddy, when you get old, Ellie said. It will be yours when you're an old man like Grandpa and you come to live with me. When Ellie looked up, Albert's lips were pressed tightly together. For the first time, Ellie noticed that his father's eyes shone with the same rich blue as his grandfather, the same color, in fact, as his own. Without speaking, Albert motioned for the boy to follow him into the house. He walked right past Ellie's book bag, right past the garage. Dad, why aren't you taking me to school? Ellie said. But I am taking you to school, his father said in a quiet voice. This morning, you are going to learn about Yom Kippur, he added as he knocked on the door to Elias's room. Elias sat hunched in his chair and still in his pajamas, tilting his newspaper to catch the sunlight. He looked as surprised as Albert answered. While Ellie stood in the doorway, Albert knelt down gently in front of the old man and said, Father, I behaved terribly. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Elias didn't answer right away. When he bent forward, the sunlight reflected on his face, highlighting the silver in his hair and the light in his eyes. For a few minutes, he stroked Albert's head the way one might soothe a little child. He saw Ellie was watching the rhythm of his hands as he delicately pushed the strands from his son's forehead. And with each gentle stroke, Elias blessed both his son and his grandson too.
Oh, beautiful.
Thank you. That is our story for tonight. It just seemed appropriate.
Excellent. I've heard part of it before, but that was not the whole story. So it was beautiful.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's
Thank
much simpler ones, but with all of it that was there, it made it even all the more powerful. Absolutely.
I don't know how to do a Syrian accent, or I would have tried that, but I'm not even really sure what it sounds like.
It was perfect.
Yes.
Mhm. So we are going to prepare for Havdalah. So I am going to be putting the blessings into the chat. If I do it ahead of time and share it, then anybody who's not on when I do it won't be able to see it. So that's why I can't share it very far ahead. So my apologies about that. But a very powerful story to continue to think about.
Okay, chat.
Okay, so all of the blessings are now in the chat, and we can light our candles. So I took this picture last night because the moon was gorgeous last night after services. So I have one picture from behind the temple where you see part of the building next door and the crane in the back. And so I decided this was the more peaceful one for tonight. Because I hear always people talking about the moon, but if there's so many trees here, I don't always get to see it. So when I looked up, when I was getting my reporter out of my mailbox, because my mail comes late, and I saw it and I thought, if I pull my car in, I'm going to come out and take a picture. So that's when I did it when I got home last night. Please join me in the blessings. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. La 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 la. Ya la 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 la. La 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen borei peri hagafen. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. The spices. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim. Borei minei v'samim. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei me'orei ha'esh borei me'orei ha'esh. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil ben kodesh lechol ben or lechol shech בין יום השביעי לששת ימי המעשה. ברוך אתה אדוני המבדיל בין קודש לחול. Take one more moment just to take in the last little bit of Shabbat, the warmth of the flame and the light and the sweetness, and then we put our candles out. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi, Bimhera v'yamenu yavo Eloheinu, Imashiach ben David, Imashiach ben David, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi. I invite everyone to unmute so we can hear one another as we sing Shavua Tov together. Shavua Tov,
Shavua
a good week, a week of peace. May gladness reign and joy increase. A good week, a week of peace. May gladness reign and joy increase. Shavua Tov. We wish a good week to everybody on Facebook, and we'll see you either next Friday night for Shabbat evening services or next Saturday for Havdalah.